Hello everyone. Today we will do with the next chapter, that is from Unit 3, Human Anatomy and Physiology. The chapter name is Circulatory System. Okay. So what is circulatory system? Okay. So in multicellular organism, the essential nutrients that needs to be supplied to each and every part of the body cells, the complex network structure that makes up to supply the essential nutrients to the body cells, to the tissues, is only called as circulatory system. In unicellular organism, what will happen? The food simply gets inside by the process of diffusion, or the food particles diffuses and the nutrients are available to the body by the process of diffusion. But in multicellular organism, there is a very complex structure, a network of structures are present. This network of structure which provides the essential vitamins, minerals, chemical substances, oxygen for the normal life to process is only called as circulatory system. So in human being, we'll be talking about human anatomy. So in human circulatory system, what makes up the circulatory system? But before to that, there are two types of circulatory system. Two types of circulatory system. One you call it as closed circulatory system. Closed circulatory system. Another one you call it as open circulatory system. Okay. In human being, in all the vertebrates, you have a complex network of structure in which the essential chemical substances needs to be transported, and you call it as the closed circulatory system. In closed circulatory system, what will happen? Whichever is the fluid, that is the blood, it remains in the blood vessels. So when the blood remains in the blood vessels, and in the blood various types of essential chemical substances are present in it. So the blood remains inside the tube, it remains inside the blood vessel. Such type of circulatory system are called as closed circulatory system. Another one you call it as open circulatory system. In open circulatory system, the fluid, so when I say fluid, anything that flows is called a fluid. So the fluid does not remain inside the blood vessels, does not remain inside the tube, does not remain inside a confined structure. It simply remains in the body itself. That means each and every nutrients are simply diffused into the body, throughout the body, and this you call it as open circulatory system. Where often you observe the open circulatory system? You mostly observe in the arthropods. So when I say arthropods, all insects. In the insects, you will find open circulatory system. The fluid does not remain inside the blood vessel, it does not remain inside the tube. Whereas in closed circulatory system, all the essential nutrients remains, the fluid remains inside the tube. So that is called as closed circulatory system. Now, in human being, what makes the circulatory system? So what are the components of circulatory system? So a circulatory medium is required, and in that circulatory medium, what is the medium? The blood and the lymph. The blood and the lymph are the circulatory medium. This circulates throughout the body. In the blood, there are various types of dissolved minerals, dissolved chemical substances that is required for the normal functioning of the body, and that you call it as a circulating medium. We'll come to the details about what is blood and what is lymph. Next one, the blood vessels through which the blood needs to move, and the blood vessels comprises of arteries and veins and capillaries also. Okay. Then after that, what is the component of circulatory system? A pumping organ. So the pumping organ that is the heart. The heart pumps the blood. Okay. When the heart pumps the blood, what will happen? Each and every essential nutrients are available to the cell. But one thing you have to keep it in mind. Okay. One thing you have to keep it in mind. This circulatory system which I am talking about, okay, that is the arteries and the veins. They are not connected with the cells. They are not connected with each and every part of the cells. Okay, they are not connected with the cells like this. That means what gets connected out here, then you see, first of all, let's take a bigger tube will be there, then a smaller tube will be there. It can be artery, okay, aorta, then artery, then more smaller part, that is the arteriole. Okay, suppose take for example the bigger part, aorta, then artery, then arteriole. Okay, then after that you will find the very smaller one. This is the capillaries. Okay, this capillaries more or less remains with the cell. So what will happen? Whatever the blood is flowing through this, okay, whatever the blood is flowing through the blood vessels, the capillaries, what do? They put it out here. Okay, they put it out here. The nutrients are put out here. From here, what will happen? The nutrients, they pass by the process of diffusion, or they pass by the process of osmosis. Okay. Now, what do you call this one? Okay, this one you call it as tissue fluid. Okay, what do you call it? Tissue fluid. That means each and every minerals are, each and every nutrients are, okay, glucose, oxygen, hormones, chemical, each and every nutrients are put out here by the capillaries. And the cells, you see that this cell comprises of tissue, and here whatever the fluid are present surrounding the cells, surrounding the tissue, what they are called as? They are called as tissue. They are called as tissue fluid. That means when the blood is moving, some of this fluid, what will happen? They leak. Okay, as the blood is moving, some of the fluid, some of the nutrients will get leaked. This leaked fluid that surrounds the cell, that surrounds the tissue, is only called as the tissue fluid. And then this leaked fluid, when they are now trying to get inside the blood, trying to get inside the vessels, inside the blood vessels, okay, the returned fluid, you call it as lymph. Okay, the returned fluid is called as the lymph. We'll come to know the details what is lymph later on. But one thing you have to keep it in mind, that none of these blood vessels are in direct contact with the cells. You have to understand that these blood vessels, they subdivide into several branches. Finally, the nutrients are put out here. The leaked fluid are called as the tissue fluid that surrounds the cells, that surrounds the tissue, and the returned fluid is only called as the lymph. Okay. Now, the components I told you, that the circulatory system, a circulatory medium, blood vessels, a pumping organ, and here you came to know what is the circulatory medium? The blood and the lymph. More or less in the fill in the blanks, in the true and false, when it is asked what is circulatory medium, then it is the blood and the lymph. Blood vessels, that is the arteries and the veins. And a pumping organ, that is the heart. Now, first of all, one by one, we will be dealing in details. Okay. So, first of all, we have the first one, that is the circulatory medium, that is the blood. What is blood? Okay. First of all, you have to understand that blood is the seat of soul. Okay. Blood is the seat of soul. So what do you mean by seat of soul? You see that as long as the blood is moving in our body, okay, then we are considered to be living, okay, we are considered to be alive. But what will happen when the blood stops moving, circulating? That means a person is considered to be dead. So here you see that indirectly we are alive, that is because of the blood only. So that is why blood is the seat of soul. Now, first of all, let's go into the biological details regarding what it is all about blood. The blood is a fluid connective tissue. First of all, I have written out here fluid connective tissue. Fluid, what do you mean by fluid? Okay, anything that flow is called a fluid. Now the question comes, connective tissue. What do you mean by connective tissue? It connects. Okay, so connective tissue, you have a certain criteria, you have a certain characteristic by which you can say that it is a connective tissue. In connective tissue, okay, the criteria or the characteristic of connective tissue is that it should contain a cell. Okay, number one. Number two, it should contain a fiber. And number three, it should contain a matrix, that is the ground substance. Okay. Now, three things should be there to form a connective tissue, that is the cell, fiber and the matrix. Now, blood is considered to be a fluid connective tissue because, okay, why? Because you will find that there is a cell also, there is a fiber also, and there is a matrix also. Let's go to the details part of it. The blood is a fluid connective tissue that transports vital substances, essential, very important, whichever is required for the cell. You see that we all have more than 200 different types of cells. Okay, so for bone cells, the requirement is different. Okay, for the bone cells, whatever the essential nutrients you require, bone, you see that the bone is stronger or you are healthier, you have a very good bone, you have a healthier bone because a good amount of calcium is required. So each and every part of your body, organ, system, muscles, each and every part of your body require different types of nutrients. So here you see that the vital substances required throughout the body. The blood of all vertebrates are red. Okay, all vertebrate organism, you will come to know that the blood is red in color. Why it is red in color? Because it has a certain cells, that is the red blood cells. It has which cell? Red blood cells. So when I say red blood cells, okay, when I say red blood cell, the cell is red in color because it contains a pigment that is called as hemoglobin. Okay, it contains a pigment that is called as hemoglobin. So when I say hemoglobin, you see the word hem. Okay, the word hem means iron, and globin. Okay, globin means what? It is protein. So it is an iron protein. Okay, because the word hemoglobin, hem means iron, globin means protein. So it is an iron protein. Because of this cell, because of this, the characteristic color of the cell becomes red in color. So all vertebrate organism, the blood is red in color because of the presence of hemoglobin. Next one, because it has certain cells, red blood cells that contain hemoglobin, I told you. It is fluid connective tissue. Why it is fluid connective tissue? Because it contains RBC, WBC and blood platelets. RBC, that is red blood cell, white blood cells and blood platelets. 3 cells. So here you see that this cell, because it contains cell 1, I told you. Okay, in the liquid part called blood plasma. Now in the liquid part, that is the blood plasma, the liquid part of the blood, okay, that is the blood plasma, contains various types of chemical substances, inorganic, organic chemical substance. Will be dealing in details in the next slide. Okay, another one, here I have written fiber, then you see that fibrinogen. Okay, one fiber is there, that is called as fibrinogen. Fibrinogen, that is the fiber it contains. Matrix, matrix I told you, all chemical substances, cell I told you, RBC, WBC, okay, blood platelets, there are there. So here you see that cell, fiber, matrix, RBC, fibrinogen and the chemical substances are present. Due to that, it is called what? Fluid connective tissue. Okay. Now, human have 4.8 to 5 liters of blood. Okay, that means a grown-up adult, how much liters of blood? 4.8 to 5.8 liters of blood are there in a normal human being. The blood constitutes about 1/13 of the body weight. Whatever is your body weight, 1/13 of your body weight. Okay, 1/13 of your body weight. So when I say 1/13 of your body weight, 1/13, 1/13 into whatever is your body weight, say 60 kg, okay, 70 or any, you just calculate, cancel it, and then whatever the answer you get, that much amount is the blood that contains in your body. Next. Now, what is the function of this blood? Number one, you see that transport of food material. First of all, transport of food material. Now, usually what will happen? Usually what happens, you see that food is digested. Okay, the process by which the food digests, that you have already learned in your class 7, 8, 9 about digestion. Now, actually what will happen, you see the mouth, okay, stomach, okay, okay. Now, usually when the food gets inside in the stomach, digestion goes on, and this is the large intestine, this is the small intestine. Now, in the small intestine, okay, in the small intestine, what is there? The absorption of food takes place, and then you see this structure, you call it as villi. Okay, villi means this is the plural form. One structure, if I talk about one structure, okay, one structure, let's take like this, okay. This one is the villus, okay. A tiny projection is present inside the intestine. Now, when the food, after the process of digestion happens to go pass through the small intestine, in the small intestine, what will happen? There is a presence of villi, a small projection that is present inside the intestine. Now, what will happen? This is the food, okay. These are the food. The food remains in the more or less in the slurry form. Here you see these are the capillaries. Okay, these are the capillaries. A very small micro tubes. These are the capillaries. And now what will happen? Each of these projection, okay, they are very much dipped. The projection are dipped inside the food. What will happen? All the nutrients, by the process of diffusion, by the process of osmosis, they get inside the villus. And what will happen? Each of these capillary, through the capillary tubes, what will happen? The food nutrients will be passed. These capillaries will connect with the arteriole. Okay, arteriole will connect with the artery. Okay, this is the arteriole. Okay, arteriole. This is the capillaries, arteriole, artery, and then this way, what will happen? The food is supplied from one tube to another tube to bigger tube. So, and after that what will happen? Finally, from here again, the bigger tube will branch in a smaller part, more smaller part, and then wherever is the cells, okay, wherever is the cell, in the cells what will happen? The capillaries are connected, but here you see that this is the tissue fluid. It puts out here in the tissue fluid, and from the tissue fluid, the nutrients are available to the cell by the process of, either by the process of diffusion or either by the process of osmosis. Now, this way, what is happening out here? After the digestion, the food that was absorbed, the absorbed food was circulated. The absorbed food was transported through this circulatory system. So, who transported it? The medium is the blood. The food nutrients got dissolved in the blood. Okay, the food nutrients that gets dissolved in the blood, you use the term called as assimilation. Okay, assimilation. When the food nutrients are dissolved in the blood, you call it as assimilation. After the nutrients get assimilated in the blood carries it through capillaries, through arteries, through arteriole, and then finally where does it take? It takes to the each and every body cells. It deposits out there. And inside the cell, what will happen? After the nutrients are available to the cell, then what will happen? Metabolism takes place. So when I say metabolism, okay, when I say metabolism, the sum total of all the chemical reaction that occurs inside a cell, the sum total of all the chemical reaction that occurs inside a cell is called as metabolism. So when metabolism, what will happen? This will produce energy. So take for example, inside the cell, what will happen? Take for example C6H12O6, glucose plus oxygen. When it comes in contact, okay, cellular respiration will take place. Then it will produce ATP plus CO2 plus H2O. What has produced? It has produced energy. This energy that has been inside the cell, who will trap it? The mitochondria will trap it. Now this one is the mitochondria. Mitochondria will trap the energy. Okay. Then there also you will come across glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and other processes goes on, that is cellular respiration. But in the nutshell, just try to understand that whatever the chemical reaction, glycolysis, Krebs cycle that is occurring inside the cell, that is metabolism. And here what has happened? Energy has produced, and what also it has produced? It has produced the carbon dioxide. So first of all, transport of food material. Another one is what? Transport of oxygen. Now, how is this oxygen transported? Okay, how is this oxygen transported? Then I will tell you the mechanism of how the oxygen is trapped and how the blood they take it. Okay, how the pulmonary vein brings that oxygen to the heart and how it is circulated. That mechanism I will be telling you when I will be discussing in the heart part. Okay, transport of carbon dioxide. Now here you see, after the metabolism, what has produced? Carbon dioxide has produced. But at the same time, when oxygen gets infiltrated, when the oxygen is brought in the cell, and due to chemical metabolism, what also got produced? Carbon dioxide also got produced. This carbon dioxide that has got produced, again what will happen? This iron, that is the RBC, will trap this carbon dioxide. That means, one, you have to understand that when the RBC carries the oxygen, it has brought to the cell, it has given up to the cell. So thereby metabolism took place, respiration took place, cellular respiration took place. Due to cellular respiration, what has happened? It has produced energy, it has produced carbon dioxide, it has produced water. Okay. Now this carbon dioxide, that means once this RBC has given up this oxygen, in returning, the RBC, that is the hemoglobin, traps the carbon dioxide also. So at the same time, what it is also doing, it transport of carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide will be again carried by the capillaries, carried by the veins, and finally where does it bring? It brings to the lungs. In the lungs, oxygenation takes place. Okay. So when I say oxygenation, exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen, you call it as oxygenation. Oxygenation takes place, and due to that the carbon dioxide is exhaled outside. Now regarding this, how the oxygen is trapped in the lungs and how the carbon dioxides are eliminated from our body. When we exhale, we give out more amount of carbon dioxide. That mechanism I will be telling you when I will be discussing in the heart part. Okay, in the heart, pulmonary circulation, there I will be telling you. Next one, transport of waste. At the same time, what will happen? Due to metabolism, each and every cells, when the chemical reactions are going on, what is also being produced? Carbon dioxide is produced. This water, the food may contain certain harmful chemical substances. Each of these chemical substances, so you see that in one side, when it is going inside the cell, at the same time the cell is also producing the waste. That waste needs to be carried it back. So liver, take for example liver, what does it do? Liver, by the process of deamination, okay, by the process of deamination. So when I say deamination, like protein type of food, okay, protein type of food, okay, take for example protein type of food, CHON, okay, this is the composition in the protein, okay, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. So what will happen, this food will be broken down into CHO and N, okay. CHO, this is the food that has got form, this will go and store in the liver in the form of glycogen. Now this N, this is the nitrogenous waste, okay, nitrogenous waste that is in the form of urea. This urea which will be produced by the liver, the urea needs to be dissolved in the blood and then it has to be carried to the kidney. The kidney will now eliminate the urea as a form of nitrogenous waste. So what also it does, each and every cells, they produce a metabolic waste. So when I say metabolic waste, due to metabolic activity, the sum total of all the chemical reaction that is occurring inside the cell, due to that, whatever the waste due to metabolic activity, okay, due to metabolic activity, whatever the waste is produced, that is called as which waste? You call it as metabolic waste. So what does it do? It transports of waste, metabolic waste. Number 5th point is transport of hormones. The various chemical substances that is required for the normal development of our body. The hormones also, what do? They are dissolved in the blood and then it is carried to the target cells, it is carried to the target organ, and this, when it needs to be dissolved in the blood, and that also you see that the transport of hormones also is done by the blood only. Next one, distribution of body heat. Okay, you see that our normal body temperature, okay, our normal, okay, that part I will tell you. Distribution of body heat means that whenever we eat food, okay, whenever we eat food, the food needs to be metabolized. Every cells, what do? They produce heat. So this heat also passes into the blood, and from there you see that what happens, it spreads throughout the body and we sweat. Okay, the sweating and all is nothing but it is releasing the heat that has been produced by the metabolic activity inside the cell, and that is called as distribution of body heat. The heat is evenly produced and distributed to our body. Excess of heat is thrown out, is removed from our body in the form of a body heat, that is in the form of a sweat. Next one, in the blood you see that there are certain types of cells, white blood cells are there. Okay, what is their role? Their role is to protect against various types of bacteria, virus, protozoa. These are the disease that happens to come through contaminated food, air, water, soil, and as they happen to get inside, what will happen? In the blood you will find different types of cells are responsible to fight against the disease causing organism. Fight against the disease causing organism. When I say disease causing organism, you have to understand I am talking about pathogen. Okay, disease causing organism are called as pathogen. So protection against disease, protection against pathogen. They destroy the pathogens. Another one, regulation of body temperature. Our normal body temperature is 37 degree Celsius. Okay, so this 37 degree Celsius is very well maintained by our, irrespective of outside temperature. Outside temperature may be very high, very low. You see that if you happen to go to a colder place, still your body temperature will be 37 degree Celsius. If you are in a very hot climate place also where the temperature is 40 degree, 48 degrees, still your body temperature remains normal only. Okay, that is 98.4 degree Fahrenheit. So this, how it is regulated? Then you see that it is regulated by vasodilation. It is regulated by vasodilation and vasoconstriction. Okay, and these two things are regulated. Okay, these two things are regulated by hypothalamus. Okay, hypothalamus is considered to be the thermostat. Okay, thermostat. This hypothalamus is inside our brain. Okay, it is inside the brain. Hypothalamus is considered to be the thermostat. So depending upon external temperature, what it will happen? Vasodilation. So when I say vaso, okay, when I say vaso, you have to understand vaso means the vascular system. So which one is the vascular system out here? The arteries, vein, capillaries, there are the vascular system. So what vasodilate, when I say dilation, dilation means to become bigger. It opens up. The blood is rushed. When the blood is rushed, automatically what will happen? The body heat is released. That means we sweat. We sweat due to what? Vasodilation. So where your internal temperature becomes high, body heat becomes high, the body heat comes in the form of a sweat. And the release of sweat is to cool your body, to bring your body temperature to normal. At the same time, what is there? Vasoconstriction. So when your external temperature is low, during that time we do not sweat. In the winter month we do not sweat. Why we do not sweat? Because of which constriction? Vasoconstriction. That means the blood vessels, they constrict. Sweat pores do not open. The body heat, the heat that is produced by the metabolic activity of the cell, metabolism of the cell, cellular respiration, the heat remains conserved. When the heat remains conserved, automatically our body temperature remains normal. So this way of regulating, who regulates it? Then it is the hypothalamus that is present in our brain, and hypothalamus is considered to be what? It is considered to be the thermostat. So regulation of body temperature is done by hypothalamus by a process of vasodilation and vasoconstriction. Next, now, what does the blood contain? Okay, what is the composition of blood? So in the blood, okay, in the blood, what you will find it? You see, the liquid part, 80% you will come across, the water is present, that is the plasma. In the plasma, you will come across, there are inorganic and organic chemical substances, and nutrients are present in it. Okay. Then you will come across red blood cells. Then after that you will come across white blood cells. These are the white blood cells. These are the red blood cells. And the smaller one, okay, this smaller one, these are the platelets. So again you see that when it is taken in a vial, okay, you will come across plasma. 55% will be plasma, white blood cells 4%, and red blood cells 41. Red blood cells how many? 41%. So this is the what does blood contain? What is the composition of blood? Then the blood contains plasma, red blood cells, platelets, and white blood cells. Okay. Okay. Now we'll do this much for today. Thank you.
Hello, my dear students. Our today's topic is pulley. It is a continuation of the same chapter, machine, chapter number 3. What is a pulley? We say a circular wooden or metallic disc which is capable of rotation by a string or by a thread or by a chain or by a rope is called a pulley. So we have different types of pulleys. First you have to learn about single fixed pulley. Single fixed pulley. The diagram of single fixed pulley is like this. Circular disc we have. It can be metallic or wooden disc which we have to rotate with the help of a thin and long material that is called strand. S-T-R-A-N-D, strand. Strand, a thin and long material is called strand. Within the strand we have rope, we have thread, we have string, depending upon the weight of the load which you want to overcome by this pulley. So the diagram of single fixed pulley is like this. A fixed pulley is the pulley whose axis of rotation is fixed, which does not move. Only pulley will get rotated. Only pulley rotates. One side will connect the load. Load, we can denote it by L, and one side will give effort to lift the load. When we are using a strand or a rope or a pulley, thread and all, so there will be tension, force of tension acting on it, so we will be drawing the force of tension like this. Force of tension that is denoted by T is always marked in the upward direction, irrespective of the motion of the load and the effort. It is to be always marked in the upward direction, which I have marked here, T and T. Now we will see load, that is L. L is supported by this tension, one tension, we write one tension. Effort is supported by another tension, T. If we find the mechanical advantage of this pulley, single fixed pulley, the mechanical advantage formula is we have load by effort, T upon T, getting cancelled, answer is 1. So mechanical advantage is 1. Velocity ratio also we will find. Velocity ratio will be, in this case, in pulley system, is decided or determined by the number of tensions supporting the load. How many tensions supporting the load? 1. So velocity ratio will be 1. What is the meaning of velocity ratio equal to 1? That means it is the distance moved by the effort to the distance moved by the load. That means effort and the load will move by the same distance. If load goes up by 1 meter, then the effort will have to go down by 1 meter. Or if the effort goes down by 2 meter, then the load also goes up by 2 meter, same distance. They will be covering, they will be traveling the same distance. That's why velocity ratio is 1. Mechanical advantage is 1. That means this kind of pulley system does not provide any mechanical advantage. In this case, load and effort will be of equal value. So we are not gaining in the force, we are not gaining in the effort. We are not giving less effort and overcoming a heavier load. Rather, we are applying equal effort to the load. But why we use such kind of pulleys? This kind of pulley is used mainly to gain in the direction of the force applied, or gain in the direction of the effort. The direction of effort is in the downward direction. In order to lift the load up is convenient. Why it is convenient? Because effort direction is downward, which is towards gravity. So a person can use his or her own weight in order to lift the pulley, and on top of that the load can be lifted up to a desirable height. One example, simple example in our daily life we have of this kind of pulley system is in the well. In the well, when we fill a bucket full of water, we use a rope connected to pulley, and the bucket will be put down in the well which is filled up with water, and through one side we will be giving the effort and will be lifting the load up, that is water up. It is much convenient because you can put your own body weight as the effort, you feel convenient, and moreover the load can be lifted up to a desirable height. Such kind of pulley system is used in well, even in flag staff. Sometimes like during Independence Day or any ceremony time, we school flag and all, the school day time and all, annual sports time and all, we use a long flag pole, and the flags are lifted up there before it is hoisted. So the rope is pulled on, the flag goes up to a desirable height. If you apply the effort in the upward direction, then the load can be lifted only up to the height till where your hand reaches. But by this system, we can lift the load up to a desirable height. Whichever height we want to lift the load up to, we can fix the pulley over there at that height, and the load will go easily to that height by applying the effort in the downward direction. So this is the main advantage of this pulley system. It provides a convenient direction for the effort to be applied. Convenient direction is the downward direction. Even the coal mines and all, from the mines the coal is lifted up there by having the pulley system, which is giving the effort in the downward direction there. Maybe through the machine, through the manual effort, but the effort is given in the downward direction in order to lift the load up. So this kind of pulley system is used normally in those cases. But in practice, in practicality, we apply effort slightly more than the load, slightly more than the load. Though according to the theory, mechanical advantage is one, that means load and effort are of equal values, but in practice we give slightly more effort than the load. Why? Because there will be friction in practice, there will be frictions, there will be weight of the pulleys, there will be weight of the ropes. In order to overcome friction, weight of the rope or weight of the strand and the weight of the pulleys, a slightly greater effort is given. If question comes like that, why a slightly more effort, why a little more effort is given in order to lift the load up? So we say answer will be in order to overcome friction and the weight of the pulleys and the weight of the strand. So that is about the single fixed pulley. Now the students, you should see what is single movable pulley. Single movable pulley now. Single movable pulley. Let us see. A movable pulley is the pulley whose axis of rotation is not fixed. Axis of rotation also will move along with the pulley. So it is like the diagram of a single movable pulley is like this. Okay, single movable pulley's diagram is over here. This is the pulley hanging with the help of the strand. And when we move the strand, the pulley as well as the load moves together. Pulley rotates and as well as gets lifted up together. So load will be here, then tension will mark out here T, here also will mark T tensions. And now this time we will see effort is given by one side of the string or strand. So write effort is equal to 1T. Load is given by both the strand is supporting the load as well as the pulleys. We will be writing load is equal to 2T. Therefore, mechanical advantage will be equal to load by the effort, which is equal to 2T by T. The answer is 2. And velocity ratio, as I told you in the previous case, is equal to the number of tensions supporting the load. So how many tensions supporting the load? 2. So velocity ratio is 2. So such a pulley, single fixed movable pulley, behaves as force multiplier because mechanical advantage is more than 1, that is 2. Force multiplier. Pulleys are 1, number of pulleys is 1, but mechanical advantage is 2, even the velocity ratio is 2. What is the meaning of mechanical advantage of this pulley system equal to 2? Is that it is a force multiplier. That means you have to give effort exactly half of the load. If the load is 100 Newton, you have to give an effort of only 50 Newton to lift the load. So this is mechanically advantageous. It has got advantage mechanically. Mechanical advantage is more than 1. Not like the single fixed pulley. In the single fixed pulley, mechanical advantage was equal to 1. That means load and effort was almost equal, and even the effort was not less, but in practice it was slightly more than the load in order to overcome friction, as I told you already. So this pulley system has got velocity ratio equal to 2. That means velocity ratio 2 means, you can see, have a look at it. dE by dl is equal to 2. That means effort will move by a distance twice of the load. If the load moves by 1 meter, then the effort will have to move by 2 meter. That means the distance covered by the effort is more than the distance moved by the load. So this is the meaning of this information, that velocity ratio of such pulley system is 2. This type of question has come many times in ICC, and they had asked, name a single pulley whose mechanical advantage is 2. So we say single movable, we'll use the term movable, because movable pulley will have the velocity ratio also 2 and mechanical advantage also 2, though the number of pulleys is only 1 and it is mechanical advantage. But there is one disadvantage of this pulley system also, and the disadvantage is the direction of effort. Effort direction in this case is in the upward direction, which is inconvenient, because we can't lift the load up to the desirable height and it is against gravity. So you can't use your own body weight as an effort. So it is slightly disadvantageous. But we have a method of changing the direction of effort to the downward direction, which is convenient, by using a fixed pulley along with the movable pulley. So the diagram is like this. We can change the disadvantage into advantage by using a fixed pulley along with the movable pulley, like this. Now we can give the effort in the downward direction. Here also there will be tension, same string will go over. This is a fixed pulley. Now the direction of effort is in the downward direction, which is convenient, and it is also force multiplier. Now it will have double advantage. One advantage is the less effort we are giving, and another advantage is the effort also in the downward direction. So normally movable pulleys are provided with a fixed pulley. What is the role of the fixed pulley? Just to change the direction of effort to the downward direction, which is convenient. What is the role of this movable pulley or the hanging pulley? The role of this pulley is it acts as a force multiplier. So it will allow you to apply less effort in order to overcome heavier load. But what is the role of this pulley? We say role of this pulley is to change the direction of effort to the downward direction, which is convenient. So sometimes they give the name out here A and B. This is 1 year ICC question they had given, and they were asking, name the pulleys A and B. Name the pulley. We say pulley A is the single movable pulley and pulley B is the single fixed pulley. Now second part of question says, what are the roles played by the pulley A and pulley B? So pulley A role is force multiplier, and what is the role of the pulley B? To change the direction of effort to the downward direction, which is convenient, or to provide convenient direction for the effort to be applied. That is the role played by the pulley B. So this is about the single movable pulley. So single movable pulley will have mechanical advantage 2, that is more than 1. But one disadvantage was there, so but which we are overcoming by using a single fixed pulley along with it. Now the next topic we are going to do is block and tackle system of pulleys. Block and tackle system. This is the last part, theory part of this chapter. Block and tackle system. Block and tackle system of pulleys. That means we are using a number of pulleys and we will be connecting all together and moving all the pulleys by a single strand. Single strand will move all the pulleys together. So for that we will be having blocks, 2 blocks we will be having. Upper block we will have, and we will have a lower block. Like this, 2 blocks are there. The pulleys in the upper block are fixed pulleys and pulley in the lower block are movable pulleys. So let us start with odd number of police, such as we are showing block and tackle system of 3 police, maybe 5 police, maybe 7 police, maybe 9, odd number when the number of police are odd. For example, let us take system of 5 police. How to divide them into the 2 blocks? So to divide, no, we keep always 1 pulley more in the upper block than the lower block. Suppose we are having 5 pulleys, we will keep 3 over here and 2 over here. If we are having 7 pulleys, then 4 up there and 3 down. We are having 9 pulleys, then 5 up and 4 down. If we are having 3 pulleys, then 2 up and 1 down. 1 pulley we keep more in the upper block than the lower block. If we are having even number of pulleys, such as 4 pulleys, such as 6 pulleys, such as 2 pulleys, such as 8 pulleys, such as 10 pulleys, 6 pulleys and all, there will divide equally, 3 up, 3 down, 4 up, 4 down, 5 up, 5 down, like that will divide in case of even number of pulleys. But in case of odd number of pulleys, we will divide by keeping 1 pulley more in the upper block than the lower block. So 5 pulley system we are drawing this way. There will be a hook over here, there will be another hook over here, and there will be hook over here which is connected to the load here, L. 5 pulleys, 3 we are keeping here and 2 down. So pulleys will be drawing first pulley will be smaller, next will be bigger than that, next will be bigger than that. Keep a gap between the pulleys so the pulleys should not touch each other. If they touch each other, there will be more friction and one has to apply more effort. So keep a gap between them so that the pulleys move freely without causing friction or without touching each other. And out here will be dividing 2 pulleys, keeping 2 pulleys over here. So this pulley and this pulley will have same size. First pulley out here and first pulley down will be having same size. This pulley and this pulley should have same size. They should look like having same size, and keep a gap between them also. Now how to connect strand, how to connect thread or the string and all, or maybe rope or chain and all, how to connect. These 2 hooks are used to connect the strand on the pulleys. So we can give a try first. Single pulley should move all the pulleys together like this, single strand. So from here, if you start like this, use your finger like this, move around like this way, move around. One round is coming over all the pulleys, and now the effort is coming in the downward direction. So that means this is correct. If you start from the lower hook, but what will be the problem is start from the upper hook. First use your finger and just move it around. That is, one round we are giving here, another round we are giving here, this round we have given. Now how to give the another round? You can't give, there is no pulley over here. So connecting the strand from the upper hook will become wrong. So start with the lower hook like this. Show how you are connecting like this. This way, this round is going like this. Again, this one is going over here like this. This way it is going around, and here you are giving the effort. Once you give the effort here, all the pulleys start rotating and the load will get lifted up along with the motion of these 2 movable pulleys. These 2 are movable pulleys in the lower block. Let us mark the force of tension in the string or in the strand. T, here also T, 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 we will be writing T, everywhere we will write. In each part of the string, here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. We will be marking the force of tension in each segment of the string or the strand. Let us write first, load is supported by how many tension? This load is supported by how many tension here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we will be writing a 5T. This tension we will be using for effort. Leaving this tension, how many tensions are left over? That we are writing here. 5 tensions left over. Effort will be equal to 1T. So mechanical advantage of this pulley system will come load by effort, that means will come 5, and velocity ratio is the number of tensions supporting the load. How many tensions supporting the load? 5. So we will be writing 5. The velocity ratio also is 5. Normally in block and tackle system, velocity ratio will be equal to the number of pulleys. Number of pulleys will be equal to the velocity ratio. We are using 5 pulleys, the velocity ratio will be 5. If we are using 7 pulleys, the velocity ratio will be 7. If we are using 3 pulleys, the velocity ratio will be 3. So mechanical advantage is 5. So it gives you more mechanical advantage. What is the meaning of that? That means in such pulley system, we are giving the effort 1/5 times of the load. That means the load is 100 Newton, we can give an effort of only 20 Newton to overcome the load. So this is much more mechanically advantageous. And what is the meaning of this velocity ratio 5? That means we are effort will move 5 times more than the distance moved by the load. So this is the meaning carried by this. Now let us see same way. Suppose we are having 7 pulleys and keep 4 up there and 3 down and start from the lower hook, then you will be able to connect the strand and will be able to rotate the pulleys by a single strand altogether. Now I will show you the system of 4 pulleys. Block and tackle system of even number of pulleys. That means such, for example, 4 pulleys. How to connect? Upper block, we are having a lower block. We are divide equally now because number of pulleys are for 2 up, 2 down. So we will be using one pulley here, a bigger one over here, same size over here, and the next will be same as this size, should look like, and they should not touch each other, there should be gap between them. Now let us try to connect the strand over the pulleys through the hooks. One of the hook will be used. So let us try, suppose from the lower hook if I try like this, one round here, this will go like this. Effort direction comes in the upward direction now. That way also we can connect, but the direction will not be convenient because the direction of effort is convenient in the downward direction. So we will be starting from the upper hook. If you start from the upper hook, just see like this, one round like this. Now the effort comes in the downward direction, either in the right side or in the left side, but it will come in the downward direction. So let us start from the upper hook. When the number of pulleys are odd, we will start from the lower hook. When the number of pulleys are even, we start from the upper hook, like this. Now the effort direction comes in the downward direction. Here we will mark T, here also we will mark tensions, here also we will write T, here also we will write T, here also we will write T. Tensions are marked as T. Now let us see, effort is given by one tension and remaining tensions are supporting the load. So write the load is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, write 4T, effort is equal to T. So mechanical advantage will be equal to 4, velocity ratio is also 4 because 4 tension is supporting the load. So mechanical, that is velocity ratio is equal to the number of pulleys. So this is how we will be using system of 4 pulleys. More the number of pulleys, more the mechanical advantage it will have, and more the value of velocity ratio they will have. But in practice, normally mechanical advantage and velocity ratio will not be equal because will be theoretical value of mechanical advantage is 4 because of the friction and also mechanical advantage will be slightly less than the velocity ratio because we have to overcome the weight of the strand and the weight of the pulleys and the friction as well. So mechanical advantage will be slightly less than VR in practice. Now let us see the same 4 pulleys, block tackle system of 4 pulleys, but we will be starting from the lower hook now. Now let us see what happens in this situation now. Same system of 4 pulleys, but now instead of connecting the stand from the upper hook, now if we connect from the lower hook, what happens? Let us check. If I start, that is also possible, possibilities are there like this. We can rotate all the pulley, but the effort direction comes in the upward direction here. So we will be doing like this. this way will be moving around. Here the direction of effort comes in the upward direction now. Let us mark the force of tension. T, here also T, here also tension, here also tension, here also tensions. Now we'll see load is supported by all of them, even effort is also partially lifting the load. So how many tensions supporting the load now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 tensions supporting the load. Effort also through one tension. So mechanical advantage now becomes 5. And velocity ratio will also be equal to the number of tensions supporting the load, will also be 5. This time the velocity ratio will be 1 more than the number of pulleys when the direction of effort comes in the upward direction. When the direction of effort comes in the downward direction, then the number of pulleys will be equal to the velocity ratio in that case. So number of pulleys are 4, but the velocity ratio and the mechanical advantage is 5. If question comes like this, draw system of block and tackle system of 4 pulleys so that the velocity ratio is 5. So we will draw these ones and effort direction in the upward direction. Or mechanical advantage equal to 5. So we will draw this one. If they say draw system of 4 pulleys with the mechanical advantage equal to 4 or velocity ratio equal to 4, so we will be drawing the previous one. The effort will come in the downward direction in that case. So depending upon the question, we will be drawing the diagram. The question will clarify which effort direction, in case of even number of pulleys, effort direction should be in the upward direction or should be in the downward direction. It should be clarified in the question. Question will clarify that. Or they may give a kind of hint. They may say that velocity ratio, system of pulleys are 4, but velocity ratio should come 5. Then you draw this one. Or velocity ratio should also be equal to 4, and then draw this, the previous one which I drew. So depending upon the question, you have to draw the figure. If they say draw block and tackle system of 6 pulleys, with the, then they have to clarify. They will give some kind of hint. 6 pulleys with the effort in the downward direction. So you will start from the upper hook and have the effort in the downward direction. System of 6 pulleys with the effort in the upward direction, you will draw this type. Means you start from the lower hook, then the effort direction will come in the upward direction. So it will be more mechanically advantageous. But one disadvantage will be also there, that is the direction of effort, which is in the upward direction, which is inconvenient. But though this direction of effort we can change. You know the method of changing this direction of effort. We have to use one fixed pulley like this. One fixed pulley can be used and direction of effort can be changed. This part remains unchanged. This part will remain unchanged, but only the direction of effort also becomes now convenient, which is the downward direction here. So this was the theory part of this chapter. Now for today we are doing this much. So next class we will be doing numericals on this chapter. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, children. In the last classes, we have already completed the 10 poems which are there in your ICSE syllabus. And therefore now it is time for us to move on. And I have chosen the stories to begin with. And the first story that I have chosen is Old Man at the Bridge. Now, out of the 10 stories that are there in your syllabus, the question arises, why have I chosen this as the first to begin with? There is a simple reason. The simple reason is it's quite short, the language is quite easy, and most importantly, the theme of this story is similar to the theme of a poem that we have already done. Remember the poem After Blenheim? It was an anti-war poem. Similarly, this story is an anti-war story. So, since you already know about the anti-war theme, I have selected this story first because it will be easier for you to understand the central idea, the message or the theme of this short story. Now, before I begin with the story, I would like to tell you something about the author of this story, because knowing the author is important here, because the story is related and connected to his life to some extent. You know that the author of this story is the American novelist Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was himself a soldier during the First World War. But during that war, he got injured and he had to quit his profession as a soldier, and after that, he became a reporter, a journalist. And as a reporter, he used to go to various war zones for reporting. I told you he is a novelist, or he was a novelist. Yes, Ernest Hemingway is considered to be one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century American literature. He is famous for his novels like A Farewell to Arms, which is based on his experience as a soldier during the First World War. His other famous novel is For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is based on the Spanish Civil War, and this story is also related to the Spanish Civil War. And another novel of his is very famous. You have surely heard about it, The Old Man and the Sea. His importance, his contribution to literature in the 20th century was so profound and great that he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1954. Now I come to the setting of this story. The story is set somewhere in Spain. The time of this story is 1938. At this time, there was a civil war going on in Spain. What was the civil war? On the one side, there were the Spanish people who wanted democracy in the country. On the other side, there was a group who wanted dictatorship. So the Democrats and the people supporting dictatorial rule, they were fighting against each other in Spain. So the Spanish people themselves were fighting against each other, and therefore it is referred to as the Spanish Civil War. That is what I have written. The story is taking place near the Ebro River. Okay? Democrats, those who supported democracy, were fighting against the army led by a gentleman called General Franco. This General Franco wanted to become the dictator of Spain, and he was helped and supported by Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party in Germany, and he was also supported by the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini and his fascist party. So, the setting of this story is the Spanish Civil War, and the time is 1938. Just let me tell you one interesting fact. This was never a short story. In fact, whatever you read in this story was basically an article which Ernest Hemingway had written for the newspaper that he was reporting for. But later, this article was presented as a short story, and that is why it is there in your syllabus. Originally, it was never written as a story, but it was written as an article. Now I come to the story. And stories, some are long, some are medium sized, some are quite short, but it is not possible within half an hour and 40 minutes to do the story line by line, word by word. So I will start with the story and give you a gist of the story, discussing the critical aspects of the story. As I told you, this story is set in Spain in the year 1938. It is taking place near the Ebro River in Spain. Over the river Ebro, there is a pontoon bridge. What is a pontoon bridge? It's a temporary construction, a bridge over hollow cylindrical structures. Like the road is over hollow cylinders, maybe of tin, maybe of iron, maybe of steel, maybe of concrete, so that water can pass from one side to the other through these hollow structures. Now imagine, since the Spanish Civil War was taking place, people were running away from their native places to safer places. So, when this story begins, men, women, children were seen running away. Some were leaving in trucks. Some were running away in carts drawn by mules. And some women and children had no other option but to cross the bridge walking and go to safer places to save their lives. The central character in this story is this old man. This old man was also running away. He used to live in a village called San Carlos. But because of the artillery firing, because of the gunfires, all the villagers had run away from that village to save their lives. And this old man was the last to leave the village. In fact, he had no desire to leave that village, but the captain advised him to leave to save his life. He had walked 12 kilometers from the village of San Carlos and come near this pontoon bridge over the Ebro River. This old man was 76 years old. He was wearing steel-framed spectacles, but he was so tired of walking for 12 kilometers that he could walk no further, and he sat down by the side of the road near this pontoon bridge in order to take some rest. Now, please pay attention. The narrator of this story, who is referred to as I or my, this narrator was also a soldier scout. His job was to see how far the enemies had advanced. Now, this narrator had noticed this old man. He had seen the old man sitting by the side of the road. After that, this narrator had left that place, had walked 1 to 2 kilometers to inspect and see how far the enemies had advanced. After the inspection was over, the narrator had returned near this pontoon bridge. When he came back after a couple of hours, he saw that the old man was still seated near that bridge by the side of the road. The narrator became curious. Not only curious, he felt a bit of pity and sympathy for this old man. So the narrator started a discussion, a conversation with this old man. You see, I have told you, this old man was 76 years old. We will come to know he had no family. He had no political views. He was a common, ordinary, innocent man who had nothing to do with what was going on. He was looking after his animals, which consisted of a cat, 2 goats, and 4 pairs of pigeons. He was wearing steel-rimmed or framed spectacles. He was tired because he had walked 12 kilometers from his native place of San Carlos, and he had to leave San Carlos due to the artillery firing. And because he was fatigued and tired, he had sat down to take rest. The narrator, as I told you, was a soldier scout. Obviously, the narrator, I told you just now, felt sympathy for this old man. He felt pity for this old man, and he started a conversation. So he first asked the old man from where he was. The old man said that he was from San Carlos. Then the soldier scout asked that what was he doing there? The old man replied that he was a very common, ordinary man. He had not done anything wrong. He had never harmed anybody. He was leading an ordinary life looking after his animals. And as I told you, the animals were a cat, 2 goats, and 4 pairs of pigeons. The tone in which the old man talked about the animals showed that he had great attachment towards these animals. He was more worried and concerned about the animals rather than he himself. For him, his life was not important. He was more worried about the animals. Now, obviously, the tone of the old man also suggested something else. The tone was that I am an ordinary man. I have no political views. I am not involved in the civil war. I have not done anything wrong. I have never harmed anybody. My animals have done nothing wrong. Then why should I and my animals become helpless victims of a war to which we have no relation? Obviously, this old man was too honest and innocent to understand the seriousness. He knew that his life was in danger. He knew that his animals were in danger. But what he did not understand, what he was at a loss to know was, why should he suffer when he had nothing to do with the war? Why should his animals suffer when his animals had nothing to do with the war? The narrator continued with the conversation with the old man. Obviously, I told you that the narrator was very, very concerned about this old man. So, the first thing was, he started asking questions about the old man, as I told you, from where he was, what did he used to do. Then he asked if he had a family. And the old man said he had no family. His family were these animals. Then the narrator asked him what was his politics, meaning what political views did the old man have, or which political side did he support? Did he support the Democrats, or did he support the army led by General Franco? The old man said, I have no politics, meaning he had no political views. He did not support any side. For him, Those things were not important. What was important was to lead a simple life looking after the animals. Now, the narrator, out of sympathy, gave the old man a very sound piece of advice. The narrator told the old man that, look here, sir, this is not a very safe place for you to wait and stay and sit. You better do one thing. Please get up, walk, cross the bridge, go to the point where the road bifurcates going towards Tortosa. Stand at that bifurcation, get into a truck, and go towards Barcelona. This old man was so kind that he thanked the narrator for the advice or the warning, but the old man did not show any intention of getting up, walking, and going away. Here, something must be noted. Why didn't the old man get up and walk away when his life was in danger? The reason is, at the age of 76, he had lost the desire to live. For him, it did not matter whether he lived or if he died. And another important thing, he was a native of that village, San Carlos. He had lived in a village where he knew everybody, others knew him. He was very, very acquainted with that place. Now, if he runs away to Barcelona, he will have to restart his life at a new place, and he will be surrounded by people in Barcelona whom he did not know. These people would be strangers to him. Obviously, he did not want to restart his life at a new place surrounded by aliens, strangers, people whom he did not know. The very zeal, the very desire, the very wish to live in this world and survive had died in this old man. That is why he showed no interest as to get up and go away. He still went on talking about his animals, expressing his concern about the animals. He said that the cat will be all right. Cats can look after themselves. So there was nothing to worry about the cat. The cat would be able to save itself. But I'm worried about the goats and the pigeons. Now, in order to comfort and console the old man, the narrator continued with the conversation and asked the old man, when you left San Carlos, did you leave the cage door open for the pigeons? The old man said, yes, I had opened the cage door. The narrator told the old man, then you don't have to worry. The pigeons will find the door open, they will come out of the cage and fly away. And by flying away, they will be able to save their lives from the artillery fire. So the cat would be able to look after itself. The pigeons would be able to fly and run, save themselves. But what about the goats? This exact question was asked by the old man. The old man said he understood about the cat. He understood about the pigeons. But what about the goats? The goats won't be able to run away. They cannot fly like pigeons. They are not sly and clever like cats. So the goats will become victims of this war. Now, when the old man expressed his worry about the goats, the narrator had no answer to that worry, because he did not know how the goats would save themselves. Here you must understand, these goats become very symbolic in the story. The two goats symbolize the innocent, ordinary people living in a country ravaged by a war. Who suffers during a war? Ordinary people, common people, poor people who have nothing to do with the war. Their houses are destroyed, as you have seen after Blenheim. Their villages are ravaged. They die. They have to run away during a war to which they have no connection. So, the two goats in the story become symbols of the common, ordinary people who become helpless victims of a war without having done anything wrong. Now, the narrator again gave a warning or an advice to the old man. This was the second time. He requested the old man again that if you have taken sufficient rest, if you have regained your strength and breath, do one thing. Get up, walk away, catch a truck, go to Barcelona to save your life. Again, the old man thanked the narrator for the advice or the warning. The narrator now became busy with his own work. Now see what happened. The old man, after the second advice, tried to get up and walk. But unfortunately for him, he could not get up properly and he again sat down. The narrator noticed this. The narrator realized it was a hopeless situation. Despite all his advices and warnings, this old man would not go. Or rather, he was probably not in the physical condition to move because of his fatigue and tiredness. So, as I told you, the narrator had his own job to do, so he became busy with his own work. The old man remained seated at that place and did not try to move. Now comes an important part of the story, the conclusion. When you read the last part of the story, you will see it is mentioned it was Easter Sunday. That day was Easter Sunday. What is the significance of Easter Sunday? It is the day of Christ's resurrection. Jesus Christ was crucified on Good Friday, and on the third day, that is the following Sunday, he came back from death to meet his disciples. Easter Sunday is a day of hope, renewal, and resurgence. And what was happening on that Easter Sunday in the story? Instead of hope, resurgence, renewal, the war was causing death and destruction. Imagine the story is ending in an irony. The Easter Sunday is supposed to be a day of hope, renewal, resurgence among the Christians. But on this day, in the story, instead of hope, resurgence, and renewal, what was happening? Death and destruction was taking place due to the Spanish Civil War. But the story ends with further hopelessness. That day, that is the day described in the story, Easter Sunday, on that day, the sky was overcast with clouds. And because of the inclement bad weather, probably the enemy planes would not fly and bombard the ground. So for that day, at least the old man was safe. He would not die that day because the enemy planes would not fly and bombard that day due to the bad weather. But nobody knew what would happen the next day. So there was no hope for survival in the life of this old man. That is how the story comes to an end. Only 3 pages. Now I move on to the critical aspects of the story. If this story is coming in ICSE, you will be asked to write about the characters. Who are the 2 characters in the story? The old man and the narrator. Let us see the character of the old man. This old man was worried more about his animals than he was worried about himself. He had lost the desire to live. That is why he did not try to run away. He remained seated. It did not matter what would happen to him. Not interested to start a new life at a new place, living among strangers. I told you, he did not want to go to Barcelona. He did not know anybody there. At the age of 76, he did not want to start a new life at a new place surrounded by people whom he did not know. And most importantly, in the story, this old man represents all ordinary common people who become helpless victims of a war to which they have no connection, with which they have nothing to do. Now I come to the character of the narrator. The narrator, as I told you, was probably a soft-hearted person. He felt pity for the old man. He had sympathy for the old man. That is why he had started a conversation with the old man. He had started talking to the old man. He had given him advices and warnings, not once but twice. He was concerned about the safety of the old man. He was worried about the safety of the old man. And most importantly, he had tried to comfort and console the old man by suggesting that the cat would look after itself. If the cage door had been kept open, the pigeons would be able to fly and save themselves. But even despite all his pity and sympathy, the narrator had no answer to the question as to what would happen to the 2 goats. I told you about the symbolism associated with the Easter Sunday. I told you the day was Easter Sunday. It is symbolic because it is considered to be a day of renewal, hope, and resurgence because Jesus had returned from the death. But in the story, the same day is presented as hopeless, destructive, causing death. The war brought hopelessness to the life of hundreds and thousands of people, including the old man. The war was causing destruction. The war was causing death. So on the day of hope and renewal, what was happening? Death and destruction. Irony. That is what the author is highlighting. Now I come to the theme of the story. Obviously, as I told you in the beginning, like the poem after Blenheim, this story is also an anti-war story. That ordinary, innocent, common people are victims of wars. Leaders begin wars. Political leaders begin wars. Power-hungry people begin wars. But the sufferers are the ordinary, innocent, common people of the country or many countries. And another thing, even animals are not spared. Not only human beings, even animals become helpless victims of wars. At least some of the animals can run away and fly away and save themselves. Human beings also have an option of running away to save their lives. Though subsequently life would be very, very difficult. But the point is, some animals, like for example in the story the goats, they have nowhere to go, and they are symbolic of these ordinary, innocent, common people who become helpless victims of a war. The last point before I conclude is, you will see that in the story, only the Ebro River is mentioned, which gives us a hint that the setting is Spain. The time actually is not mentioned in the story, but because it is Spain, because it is dealing with the Spanish Civil War, and because this article was written during that time, we conclude that the timing was 1938. But you will notice one thing. Specific location is not mentioned in the story. The name of the old man is never mentioned in the story. The narrator's identity remains a secret in the story. Why has the author done so? The author has done it purposely. The old man could have been anybody. The narrator could have been anybody. The place could have been anywhere in the world. By not mentioning specifically the location, the place, the names, the author is trying to give a universality to this story. What is this universality? By not mentioning names, the author is suggesting that this incident did not happen to Ram or Peter or Ravi. It could happen to anybody, anywhere in the world, during any war. So, by not mentioning the names, the author is highlighting the fact that such things did not happen only during the Spanish Civil War. It did not happen only to this old man. Such things can happen. Such sufferings can come. Death and destruction can be caused during any war, anywhere in the world. And the sufferer or sufferers can be not only just the old man, but anybody, anywhere living in this world. And most importantly, when we look at the pity and sympathy expressed by the narrator, we find that all people in this world are not cruel. There are people like the narrator of this story who had sympathy, pity, worry, concern about this old man. So we can conclude that even during a war, humanism exists, and the narrator has expressed that humanism by showing pity and sympathy, worry and concern for this old man, advising him, warning him to leave, to go away, to go to Barcelona to save his life. Thank you.